One of Hollywood's favorite characters this year was itself. That's hardly anything new, of course, but I do find it pretty interesting to see just how many movies there have been this year that revolve around filmmaking and this idea of a life that's been shaped by the movies. And that's something I've been thinking about recently. Lots of directors end up getting around to movies like this at some point in their career, where they ruminate on the thing that has so consumed their lives. There's a great series of movies about movies that you could program together that highlights different aspects of that larger theme. But I want to take a few minutes to talk about Joe Dante's 1993 Matinee. Because where a lot of these focus on the lives of directors and the trials of filmmaking, Matinee is about the other side of that equation, about what it means to watch movies. It's about us, the viewers, not the filmmaker. There's a panic brewing in Key West. It's October 1962, and we're smack dab in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Everyone in the town is in a frenzy, fearing that the bomb will drop at any minute. And into this arrives exploitation producer Lawrence Woolsey to cash in on all the paranoia.
The country is on red alert. People are already scared.
Exactly. And what a perfect time to open a new horror movie.
What Dante is getting at here isn't just a nostalgic look at a bygone era, but something far more idealistic. The best of his movies do this incredibly well, taking these often pulpy ideas and instilling them with a sharp social or political subtext. Gremlins is a silly horror comedy about monsters running loose, but underneath is a satire on consumerism run amok. The Burbs is an updated take on something like Rear Window, but really a commentary on xenophobia. In that respect, Matinee is almost like a thesis on the way that we turn to movies to process our own fears, and about the value of even the junkiest of schlock. In this case, Woolsey's atomic age thriller, Mant, about, well, you get it.
What in creation do you call that thing?
Bill.
Let's take a look at how he constructs this. Woolsey isn't just premiering a new movie, but an entire experience. As the movie plays, the audience is jostled around like they're on a ride. There's the vibration of Rumble-Rama, there are seat buzzers, smoke machines, firecrackers, and a dude in a costume who runs around kidnapping hired actors. Minus that last bit, of course, it's a similar kind of thing that you can get in 4D screenings today. But Dante and his writers Charlie Haas and Jericho Stone are pulling a lot of inspiration from this man, William Castle, one of the first to employ multi-sensory techniques like these. If you've watched my channel, you might remember me touching on some of this before. Castle's run of movies in the late 50s and 60s coincided with the period of real innovation and experimentation in the industry. Antitrust rulings had forced studios to divest from theaters, television was stealing away audiences, pocketbooks were thinning, so producers and exhibitors were doing everything they could to find ways of drawing audiences back to theaters. Castle's contribution to this was a series of promotional gimmicks, each goofier than the last. Things like skeletons flying on wires above the audience, or stationing nurses outside the theater, or handing out life insurance policies to viewers should they die of fright from the movie.
I feel obligated to warn you that some of the sensations, some of the physical reactions which the actors on the screen will feel, will also be experienced for the first time in motion picture history by certain members of this audience.
Gotcha.
Now, all of this was jokey and good simple fun, but there was something else going on here. Castle's gimmicks, and by extension Woolsey's, challenged the traditional conception of the movie-going experience and turned it into something much more immersive. As academic Catherine Klepper wrote, gimmicks like these expanded narrative space within the theater from the screen by itself to encompass the entire auditorium. The movie was no longer just there and the audience here. It was everywhere. It was more like traditional theater in that sense. It was alive and unpredictable. Whatever line there is between reality and fantasy was blurred. As an audience member, you brace yourself. What's going to happen next? Not just what the next jump scare on screen will be, but what will happen all around you, or right next to you. For as silly as it could be, immersive moviegoing experiences like these did house a sort of not-so-secret implication. As Klepper wrote, these gimmicks amplified the sense of risk and fear that horror movies possess, so much so that by walking into the theater, audience members were willingly placing their lives in danger. There was no actual harm, of course, no real danger, but the trick was that the audience could be seduced, even if just for a moment, into thinking that there might be.
It's not a joke. We've had 10-year-old kids having heart attacks at this movie. They're recovering, but we can't be exposed legally. Now, if you don't sign...
But we're not scared. Are we, Dennis?
No.
So what can an audience really get out of an experience like this? Well, I think the key to understanding what Dante is doing here is in the way that the theater itself is depicted. It isn't so much a refuge where everyday life is forgotten and blocked out, but instead is a place where these things are confronted. And that's because Dante and his writers understand a core truth about the power that movies like these and that genre fiction as a whole can offer, horror in particular.
See, people who go like this at the scary parts, they're not getting the whole benefit. You got to keep your eyes open.
What's the benefit?
Okay, like a zillion years ago, a guy's living in a cave. He goes out one day, bam, he gets chased by a mammoth. Now he's scared to death, but he gets away. And when it's all over with, he feels great.
Well, yeah, because he's still living.
Yeah, but he knows he is, and he feels it.
What Woolsey is talking about is a sense of release. Wes Craven used to talk about this. Horror films don't create fear, they release it, he would say. No one attends a movie as a blank slate. We all go in dragging along all of our own fears and anxieties. The things that scare us outside the theater are often the things we look for within. That's the case with Jean, the monster movie-obsessed teenager at the story's center whose father is off on one of the ships in the blockade around Cuba. For him, like a lot of young audience members growing up during the atomic paranoia of the Cold War, schlocky movies like Mant, for as exploitative as they were an opportunity to confront a sense of fear that they may have had over events going on outside the theater doors. Dante said this of himself when he was growing up at the same time.
I really did think, as we all did, that that was the last weekend, that there weren't going to be any weekends after that. Ironically, while dealing with that, we sort of sublimated our fears by watching ritual reenactments of things like Godzilla and giant insects created by atomic radiation.
That's why all of this isn't quite so much about escape. The theater here is presented almost as a kind of sacred space where one can safely engage with their fears, and it's the act of watching these movies through which one's feelings are freed, for at least a little while. Now, stay with me here, because I think this is the exact thing Matinee is talking about. What all of this is leading to is that Dante is connecting the dots between these two things, between the silly theatrical gimmicks and the emotional power that cinema holds, and then following the combination of the two to its logical conclusion. A great horror movie can activate that feeling of danger and then deliver a sense of relief for the audience, but a fully immersive experience like the one Woolsey creates has the potential to hypercharge those feelings through the roof. Which is exactly what happens in the movie's most brilliant moment. The audience is terrified, totally convinced that the bomb has dropped in the real world.
Jesus, this is it!
The crowd scrambles, chaos ensues as they all rush the exits. But then a curious thing happens. Everyone rushes out of the theater, and they suddenly realize that they're safe. That what they saw was just an illusion, the world's most convincing fake-out.
Hey, look! It's still here. I don't believe it. It's all still here.
And they're not outraged by the trick. They're thrilled.
They had the atomic bomb. I thought the world was
Get away
in the
from
theater.
me.
The whole world.
Man, I've seen this twice.
That's what the experience offers. Reality and fantasy are fused together in a trick that William Castle could have only dreamed of pulling off. A trick that literally blows up the sense of terror that horror offers to the most extreme degree possible, that pushes the audience face to face with their worst fears before wrenching them back to safety. And the result is a moment of true catharsis, of overwhelming release that leaves everyone completely energized.
Mommy,
You know, I don't think I'm the only one who's maybe become a bit more selective about what they prioritize seeing at the theater. I think that's something that the events of the last few years have really accelerated. This question of what really deserves the theatrical experience and what doesn't necessarily need it. I'm not knocking the ease and accessibility of watching movies at home, I love that like everyone else. But revisiting Matinee, it's kind of impossible to not be reminded of just how valuable, how transformational the audience experience can be when it's at its best. Moviegoing at arguably its purest isn't supposed to be insular, but communal. And even without gimmicks, that can still be quite powerful.
Then you come over here to where it's dark. It could be anything in there. And you say, "Here I am. What have you got for me?"
Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're all enjoying the holiday season, and if you're looking for a really great gift to give this year, I highly recommend Mubi. Mubi is a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from around the globe. From classics by iconic directors to exciting work from emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected, and because of that, I've found that I wind up spending way less time browsing through endless titles and adding things to watch lists, and more time actually watching. It's like your own personal film festival, streaming anytime, anywhere. And in an age of numerous streaming services, I think that's a really brilliant strategy. And for me, it's led to the discovery of quite a few new gems, a number of which I'd never even heard of before. If there's a film lover in your life that you'd like to give the gift of cinema to this holiday season, you can check out Mubi.com/gifts. Or if you're interested in trying it out for yourself, you can get an entire month of great cinema for free by going to Mubi.com/RoyalOcean to sign up today.